Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Angry Jay here, and I'm going to bring you another team breakdown from the Adams Division. But before I do that, I just want to make a couple of notes. First note is I was doing some math on my goal of producing a video for every team before the King of 94 3 tournament on October 28th in Vancouver, and I realized I'm going to have to create a video twice a week. Publish 2 videos a week if I'm going to meet my goal. I might even have to do some 3 video weeks, so there should be a lot more content coming through here. And to help me attain this goal, I'm going to try and make these videos a little bit shorter. So I'm going to talk a little bit less about, some of the depth players at each position. I'll try to be less repetitive, and I'm just going to try and be more towards the point with a lot of these players, and then talk about them a little bit more in depth while I play against the computer to try and cut down on time. I want to get these down to about 25 minutes, maybe 20 minutes on some of these teams that don't have a lot of options. So really going to do my best to make these more digestible if possible. So that's pretty much all I wanted to mention before I jump in here with the Hartford Whalers. So the Hartford Whalers are definitely a team of yore that are still very much in the minds of many fans in the northeastern United States and even across North America. They are a beloved organization. Many people miss them. A very nostalgic team. But in 1992-93, they were the lovable losers of the NHL as they went 26, 52, and 6 for 58 points, which was good enough for a 5th place finish in the Adams Division, and they missed the playoffs, as in this time in the NHL, only the top 4 teams from each division made the playoffs, so being a 5th place team meant you went home after the end of the season. So Hartford did not make the playoffs. This was kind of a darker time for them in terms of where they finished in the league. They were usually down towards the bottom. Not too much. There wasn't too many teams below them, but aside from the expansion teams. So in NHL 94, Hartford has a low home ice advantage, so they're not going to get a lot of bonuses to their ratings. But on the road, they're not going to get a lot of penalties as they have a low road disadvantage. So they're a good team to call in a matchup, and hopefully you take them on the road as opposed to at home. They're a Tier 5 team, but within their tier, they have some good matchups, but some of them can be pretty tricky. Their good ones are St. Louis and the Islanders. New Jersey and Pittsburgh are a little bit trickier because they're better on defense, and Hartford's main weakness is on offense. So you want to be careful in those 2 matchups, and you don't really want to take them out of their tier. They're not really well suited to do that. Some strengths for Hartford: they have a very good, mobile, heavy CB checking defense. They have 3 good options, and 2 of them are very good at CB checking. So if you love the CB check, Hartford's definitely a team to look out for. They also have a fairly well-skilled forward line for this tier, just very solid across the board players. And within this tier, that's actually pretty good. They have some good defensive depth overall. They have guys who can skate, guys that can pass, check. They could do it. They could do a little bit of everything back there. They're a great road team because of the low disadvantages that they have, so they won't have too many penalties to their ratings. And overall, as a team within this tier, they actually have pretty good shot power. Nobody with elite shot power, but very across the board. I mean, they're better than some teams in higher tiers like Montreal. Hartford just has better overall team shot power, so try and take advantage of that. Some weaknesses that Hartford possesses are their low home ice advantage. They don't get many boosts at home. They lack forward depth. Their 3rd forward spot's a trouble spot, as well as anything you try to pull off the bench to fill that 3rd forward spot. There's just a lot of question marks are going to come up there. They don't have any elite skills on this roster. They're just very straight line across the board. I don't want to call them vanilla type players, but they don't have like these overwhelming strengths where you could just rely on them game in, game out. You have to really work with Hartford. Their goaltending is a little lackluster, especially manual goalie. Sean Burke has some issues that we'll talk about in a little bit. And overall, their forwards are a little bit on the poor side when it comes to skating. Not fast at all, and the agility is pretty hit and miss. So this is a team where you want to try and pass the puck and make the puck move faster than your guys, because you'll play faster that way. So, and speaking of your guys, let's talk about some players here. So my first line that I would suggest with Hartford here is Pat Verbeek, Jeff Sanderson, and Terry Yake. This is going to be the line that will score the most goals and play pretty solid defense. If you like hearing brass bonanza, which I certainly do, this is the line you want to go with, as it is the best offensive line. We have Pat Verbeek here at left wing. He has 3 agility, 4 speed. These ratings are out of 6. There are 7 presets in this game, so ratings 0 through 6. 0 is included. So 3 out of 6 is average, 4 out of 6 is good, but not great. He's a right-hander, so he could get his slap shot going here on this side of the ice. And with a 4 offensive awareness, he's going to be doing a pretty good job of filling the lane for one-timers. He's got 4 shot power, 4 shot accuracy, so that's a pretty nice rating. 4 passing and 4 stick handling. So he's got these nice, evenly distributed skills, and he's a middleweight, so he's not gonna be able to just slice through defenses, especially at 3 agility. He's gonna be physically accessible to CB checkers, weight bug checkers, and even poke checkers, really, because he's not mobile enough to really just dance around them at will. So he's just a good, solid wing. He's your best passer. That's why I put him out on the wing instead of Sanderson, because if a guy's going to take the puck out wide and try and bring it back to the middle with a pass, Verbeek's your best bet in making a good pass. And he's got good slap shot power from his off wing, so he can sneak a goal by an unsuspecting goalie. Jeff Sanderson, he's going to be your trigger man. He is a very evenly distributed player, 4 agility, 4 speed, left-handed shot with 4 offensive awareness. He's got 4 shot power, 4 accuracy. He's only a 3 passer, which is why I like him in the center a little bit better. 4 stick handling, and he's a little bit lighter than Castles at 188. So he's a little bit more of a weight bug type player, but not overwhelmingly so, and he's definitely not a CB checker with only a 2 rating. So Sanderson, he's your guy to get one-timers, to go on breakaways, try and float shot, deke, whatever. He is your number 1 offensive player. Be aggressive with him and try to make things happen, because Hartford does struggle in creating their own offense. So if you get an opportunity with Jeff, just let it rip, and he's your best bet. So we got Terry Yake here on the right. He is the number 1 option for the 3rd forward spot, I think. He has 3 agility, 3 speed, so he's a little bit slower than the rest of the line. He's a right-hander, so he's going to be on his natural side here with 4 offensive awareness, and everything else here is pretty okay, with 3 shot power, 4 accuracy, but only a 3 pass and 3 stick handling. So he's not a very good puck handler. He's not a great distributor. He's just a solid player. He's your most well-balanced forward, 188 pounds, 3 checking. He's not really a CB guy. He's kind of a weight bug guy, but not especially so, and his lack of skating ability limits his defensive ability. But he's just a solid 3rd forward in a tier 5. He's not tanking your roster, and that's really all you can ask for. He's just going to be a solid contributor. I personally really like him, but I do also realize that he has his limitations. So that is line number 1. Now, if you want a more defensive line, and you want to clamp it down late, or if you just like being a more defensive player overall, Robert Cron is your best bet to put in the 2nd forward spot. His ratings are very similar to Yake's: 3 agility, 3 speed. He has a 4 in defensive awareness as opposed to offensive. His shot ratings are pretty poor: 2 power, 3 accuracy, pass accuracy of 3, and stick handling of 3. So he's even more anemically skilled than Yake. But at 180 pounds, he is more of a weight bug player. So he may come in handy against players that weigh 196 pounds. So, for example, you might be playing up against Craig Janney on St. Louis. Yake's going to have some problems weight bug checking him. Cron will not. Cron will be able to go out there and lay the body. And also Cron will be able to withstand weight bug checks from guys like Nelson Emerson and Bob Basson better than Yake. So Cron, he is useful in some matchups, but he is certainly not a good offensive player, and the onus will only be placed even further upon Sanderson and Verbeek to produce at that point. Another similar option, but a little bit better skater, Mchale Neulander. This is before his time as a very solid second-line center in the NHL. He has 4 agility, 3 speed, only 3 offensive awareness, and his skills are pretty poor: 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, 3 passing, 3 stick handling. I think this is his rookie season, and so he just doesn't have the ratings you might expect of Mchale Neulander, a longtime NHLer. He is also 180 pounds, so he might be a little bit better defensive option than Cron at 4 agility, 3 speed. But again, the ratings are very poor. You're just basically trading a little bit better shot power for less accuracy. So the call is really up to you on that. I don't think there's much difference either way, but if I were to choose, I'd probably pick the better skater, Neulander. He'll probably do better in user control. And this is really the end of the useful Hartford forwards. I mean, there's other guys. Andrew Kessels, I'll just quickly go over him. He's the starting center by default, but he's not very good. He didn't get very good ratings. 3 agility, 3 speed, 4 offensive awareness, only a 2 shot power, 4 accuracy. That's his best rating because he only gets a 3 in passing and 3 in stick handling, which is pretty bad for a guy that was, primarily a puck distributor during his career, and a fairly decent one at that. He just got the shaft in this game. 196 pounds, so he's a pure middleweight. And with that lackluster skating, the bad shooting power, he's just tough to get going on offense, and he's not anywhere near as effective on defense as Neulander or Kron. There's also Robert Petrovicki, another rookie. 4 agility, 3 speed, 180 pounds. Everything else is even worse than Neulander and Kron, so wouldn't really rely on him. If you want a CB guy, which Hartford doesn't really have one, the best you can do is Mark Jansen's. 3 agility, 3 speed, 3 shot power, 3 accuracy, 2 passing, 3 stick handling. He's not very good with the puck. As a checker, though, he's pretty solid. 228 pounds. He's a 4 checker. He's got 3-3 skating. So if you get into a slower matchup, say against St. Louis, and they prefer to use Janney and maybe Shanahan, or if you go against New Jersey and they got Riche out there, Jansen's might be an option, just to keep in mind, because he is a bruiser. He was a bruiser in his NHL career, and he's a bruiser here in '94 if you use him as a CB checker. So that's your number 1 CB option. Really, there's no one else on this roster that's really worth icing consistently. So I think this is the best lineup overall for Verbeek, Sanderson, Yake. Moving on to defensemen, we have Zarley Zalapski, the former Penguin. He's the best player on this roster by far, I think, with 5 agility, 4 speed, 4 offensive awareness, 5 defensive, 4 shot power, 2 shot accuracy, 3 in passing, and 4 in stick handling. And he is an absolute monster of a checker with 220 pounds weight, 4 checking ability, and the previously mentioned 5 agility, 4 speed. He is going to be a beast. He is your number 1 option on defense by far. He is going to be a serious thorn in every team side that he plays against. So you definitely want to get him involved in the game, whether it be in user control, where you can use that CB checking to your utmost ability, or even in AI mode. He's still a pretty good checker, and he just moves around the ice really well. If the defense sags off him, he's got plenty of offensive skills to take advantage with that shot power and the passing and the stick handling. So he can definitely do some work, and don't be afraid to do that with him. You just need to pick your spots, though, against lighter teams especially, because he is very susceptible to weight bug checking, but if you can avoid that, he is a great player, and certainly a game changer for a team like Hartford in their battle for respect in this game. Another option that I think is more balanced is Adam Burt. He's got 4 agility, 3 speed, 3 defensive awareness, 4 shot power, so there's a continuing theme of good shot power here. Shot accuracy of 1, pass accuracy of 3, stick handle 4. 196 pounds, this is your best weight bug defenseman, even though he's not really a weight bug guy, but he is your best weight bug defenseman, and I think he provides the best amount of balance with Zalapski, because Zalapski is such an overwhelming CB check guy. You don't really need another one, I don't think. And Burt's a nice counter. He's got good skills. He's just solid all across the board, and that 4 agility is actually pretty nice, I think. It makes him easier to handle than the default starter, Eric Weinrich. He's got 3 agility, 4 speed, so he's got that nice straight line speed, but he doesn't really turn or stop very well. 4 defensive awareness, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, so he's not really a factor there. 3 passing and 3 stick handling, so nothing special on offense. 220 pounds, 3 checker, decent CB checker, not anywhere near as good as Zalapski, especially only 3 agility and 4 speed. I wouldn't really recommend him as a CB force. He's more of a wait back in your own zone, then explode on a guy when they make a mistake type of player. At 220 pounds and the poorer skate ratings than Adam Burt, heavier players have a harder time starting, stopping, and turning than lighter players. So Weinrich kind of compounds his problems, really, with the low agility and the high weight. So I think he's your best bet as a sub. He's very solid sub. There's nothing wrong with him there. I just think he's a little overworked as the other option. And then your other guy here to consider if you run into some penalties or injuries, your 4th mana, On the depth chart should be Randy Leducier, 3 agility, 3 speed. Those are his best ratings, as everything else is pretty poor, just 1s and 2s. But 228 pounds, 2 checking with 3-3 skating makes him a decent CV checker. Certainly a class below Eric Weinrich, but when we're talking about 4th defenseman in Tier 5, Leducier is a pretty nice player. And everybody else should be steered away from. Kexmer, Huda, Pedersen, excuse me, are certainly not worthwhile defensemen to be icing, especially in critical situations, so stick to those 4 if you can. Lastly, goalie Sean Burke. He's okay. He's better in AI mode, I think. He's got 4 agility, left-hand glove, pretty standard there. He's got 4 rebound control, which is nice. 4 on the stick, right, 4 stick left. Glove right 4, glove left 4. So he's got some nice pad ratings. The only issue with Sean Burke is his weight. So he's only got 4 agility, and he's one of the heaviest goalies, might even be the heaviest goalie in the game. That's an issue. That means when you take him in user control, it's going to take him longer to get moving than it will other goalies. So you got to really just jump out in front of plays with Burke to get him there. Otherwise, you're essentially relying on him doing the work himself in computer mode, which he's okay in. But if he has to move, he's in trouble. Thankfully, if he doesn't have to move and he just has to rely on his save ratings, they're pretty consistent. So he's a little bit below average, I think, especially for guys that like to use the manual goalie. So that pretty much covers their individual players. So let's just quickly go over strategy. You want to use your skilled and physical defense to the max. This is really where you can change a game. So you can affect your opponent, frustrate them, and make them make turnovers because you're just using your defense to their best of ability. You're going to set up your offense for more offensive chances because they struggle on their own when they have to do it all themselves. When you do get that puck on offense, feed Jeff Sanderson. He's your best shooter. He's your best skater. He's going to be in the center of the ice, so look for him for one-timers or look for him for breakaways so he can go out there and dangle. On offense, you also want to just crash the net. Hartford doesn't have a ton of shot accuracy. I mean, they have some decent shooters, but they're not excessively accurate. So just throw pucks to the net, get bodies in there, cause havoc in front of the goalie, and just try and get some ugly goals. Really, you just want to score any way you can with this team. Another thing to keep in mind is don't get too brave with your matchup selection in tournament play with Hartford. Stay within the tier. They're not really equipped to go above, and if you take them down into the expansion teams, you're giving your opponent a huge advantage because they're going to take Hartford and you're going to be left with San Jose or Ottawa or something. And the difference between those teams is very clear, especially between 2 evenly skilled players. So another thing with Hartford, you want to find your breakout passes. Verbeek is your best winger, and he's a decent distributor. So if you can find the puck, get him out into open space on the wing so that you can eventually work the puck back to the middle towards Sanderson, I think that's a really good way to help give Sanderson some room because people are going to be trying to swarm Sanderson. So don't be afraid to use your wings and then feed Sanderson eventually. And then lastly with Burke, as I already mentioned, just take goalie control early and just read the plays that are coming at you. So you don't want to be caught surprised and have to react late because that's just going to end up in a goal. So I think we're ready for our matchup now. I got St. Louis here. This is one of their good matchups, I think. Hartford is a little bit lighter team up front than St. Louis, and St. Louis's defense is not very mobile. I mean, they're only 3 speed maximum. So I think Hartford actually will play a little bit faster or seem a little bit faster against St. Louis than they will against some other teams like New Jersey or Pittsburgh, where those defenses are more mobile, they're more aware, they're just better overall. So you want to try and give Hartford the best chance they have. I think going against St. Louis is definitely the way to go here. Wow, that was a really inaccurate shot there by Zalapski. And he didn't look like he had very good power either, so he might be a little cold this game. But we've got Sanderson in the middle now. I already missed that Brass Bonanza music. I got to score a goal here because we got to make that organ player make his money. This is unacceptable. Jeez. There's another miss. And there's a save. So Excuse me. The only real problem in this matchup for Hartford, aside from, if they let the St. Louis defensemen line up their forwards for CB checks, is Brett Hull. Brett Hull is a serious issue for everybody. Wait, I scored a goal and they don't play Brass Bonanza? This is criminal. So, back to Brett Hull. Brett Hull has 6 shot power. He's tied for the hardest shot in the game. And as I mentioned before, Burt is not very good in user control. It takes him a while to get going. And you really have to plan ahead in this, because if you let Brett Hull just rip slap shots, rip one-timers, he is going to tear you apart, because he will make even good goalies look stupid with his shot power. So if you let him tear apart Burke, you could be putting yourself in a huge hole before you know it. So try to avoid letting him get rolling, because if you stop him, St. Louis doesn't have a lot of answers here. Because Hartford, their defense will shut down the rest of St. Louis forwards pretty easily. What is this? There's still no Brass Bonanza? The game is conspiring against me, people. I'm completely thrown off my game because there's no Brass Bonanza, so luckily we'll get it at the beginning of the period here. This is ridiculous. Thank you. I'm going to be quiet and listen to this. Well, I got as much as I could until somebody took a penalty, Zarley. So, another matchup you'll want to use with Hartford is against the Islanders. So the Islanders are a offensive heavy team, but their defense is really bad, especially their goaltending. So I think that's a matchup where Hartford's offense can actually come into play, and if your defense can overwhelm the offense of the Islanders, you've given yourself another huge advantage, because your team will be much more skilled than Islanders on the back end. So just take advantage of that. Limit New York's chances, because offensively, that's their entire team. If you can take that away, they got their expansion team, essentially. And I already talked about how Hartford is a huge advantage over the expansion teams. So if you can make the Islanders play like an expansion team by taking away their forwards, then that should be a pretty easy win. And then their tougher matchups are Pittsburgh and New Jersey. They're tougher because I think they're better on defense than Hartford, and their offenses are certainly better. I think New Jersey's offense is a little underrated with Stefan Richer and Zalapukin. They can do some nice work in this tier. And then Pittsburgh obviously has Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr. And that's probably the 2 most skilled players in this tier, and they're on the same team. And they complement each other pretty well. And I just think that they have an advantage in this tier overall. But when you take Pittsburgh up out of the tier, they kind of have the same issues Hartford does, where the matchups kind of go against them pretty quickly in a lot of cases, because they have such a disadvantage when it comes to how heavy some of their players are. Guys like Lemieux, Murphy, Jagr, Stevens, Francis, they're all very heavy, so they're very susceptible to weight bug checking. If you can keep them neutralized, Pittsburgh's in serious trouble. I mean, even the guys that they have that aren't very heavy, like Joe Mullen, he's slow, so he's pretty easy to contain. Martin Straka, he's slow and even less skilled, so you can work Pittsburgh into a corner, but when they stay within their tier and play teams like Hartford, they're pretty nasty. So you want to be careful with that matchup. You don't want to give Pittsburgh to somebody that really knows how to play a very patient type of offense and take advantage of being technical and good timing plays, because people that can pass and make one-timers are probably going to be pretty good at Pittsburgh, and you need to stay away from that, because Hartford they're a little bit overwhelmed in that matchup if a team like Pittsburgh can get rolling. And speaking of rolling, looks like finally Hartford is getting rolling here in the second period. So I really like Hartford. I think within their tier, certainly got a lot of nostalgia, so that always feels good. You get those warm, fuzzy feelings inside picking Hartford. You feel like a real old-time hockey type of guy. Bring back the Whale. But overall, the team, they have great shot power, so try and take advantage of that. Just get chances on net with this team, then crash the net for those rebounds and those loose puck chances, in the crease. And nobody ever said this had to be pretty, and you want to take advantage of every chance you get with Hartford, because if you can get out to a lead to start with Hartford and then play, just solid defense the rest of the way and lock it down, your team is more than able to do that with guys like Zalapski and Weinrich, if you so choose to use him, or even Burt. Burt's a good defensive player. And then you got Cron, you can bring off the bench, and Sanderson's just solid. They can lock it down more than you might expect them to be able to. So you just want to try and jump out ahead. This isn't a team you want to fall behind with, especially by more than 3 or 4 goals, because their offense can be a little bit predictable. It's very blue collar. It's not like you're the Islanders, and you can just kind of do whatever you want in some cases. Hartford, you got to work for it on offense, so try and leave yourself in situations where you can still come back in a game and not be overwhelmed. So just use your passing. They're not a very fast team, but they pass the puck fairly well, so use your passing. Just utilize open spaces on the ice, like the wing, because Verbeek's your best puck carrier, so get him out there on the wing and just let him create plays. I know he's not very agile, so he's not going to be the best deker or best in tight areas, but he is your best puck handler. He is your best passer. Take advantage of it as best you can, because that's where you're going to find a lot of success. So just keep that in mind when using Hartford. Didn't even realize I was down 2 men, because I just wanted to feed Jeff Sanderson regardless. So we got a 5 spot with Adam Burt. That's probably a career high for him, even including midget hockey. So don't get the idea in your head that Adam Burt is an offensive force. You want to keep him back on defense. He just seems to be getting loose and taking advantage of every chance he gets here. And I've always felt that Curtis Joseph was actually a pretty poor goalie, and I feel like he's fallen victim here to some pretty easy opportunities. His save ratings are pretty low. His overall is really high, so people think, oh, Curtis Joseph, he's a good goalie. He's okay. He's buoyed by high awareness, which doesn't really do anything for a goalie in this game. So just that's something to keep in mind with a team like St. Louis's. Well, people think, oh, they have a good goalie. He's fine. Sean Burke actually has low awareness. He has a lot of his ratings devoted to puck control and his save ratings. So those are the things you want to look at. Puck control, agility, and their save ratings. You want to make sure that if a goalie has a decent overall rating, that they have those ratings, because they don't always have them, like Curtis Joseph. Burt, a lot lower rated, better ratings in some cases. So just keep an eye on those things. Keep those things in mind when picking matchups. And this is another reason why St. Louis is a good matchup for Hartford, is Hartford can take advantage of Curtis Joseph. So I think that was a pretty good game right there. Blew St. Louis out of the water. Didn't get as much Brass Bonanza action as I would have hoped, but hey, we'll take whatever we get with Hartford. We love them, we miss them, so it's good to bring them back in this game and just talk about them for a little bit. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Definitely have more of these coming out, especially in the next couple months. If you liked the video, just give a thumbs up, leave a comment. I love to hear from people about anything they liked or anything they can do to get better. So until next time, I'm actually going to be bringing Ottawa up in my next video, so it's kind of fitting that they're here in the highlights. So go ahead and tune in for Ottawa in the next episode. And until then,